The awakening Storm Commander Elena Vasquez stood at the observation deck of the starship Endeavour, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace fade into the star-filled darkness of normal space. After 18 months of traveling from Earth, they had finally reached the Kepler 442 system, where long-range sensors had detected signs of intelligent life. Elena had dreamed of this moment since she was a child, watching the first Mars colonies being established. Today, humanity would make first contact with an alien civilization. The Endeavour was not a warship. It carried no weapons beyond basic defensive systems and was staffed by diplomats, scientists, linguists, and cultural experts. Elena herself had trained for 12 years in xenobiology, interspecies communication, and peaceful contact protocols. Earth's leaders had sent their best minds on this mission, hoping to establish trade relationships and cultural exchange with whatever species they might encounter. Dr. Marcus Chen, the mission's chief scientist, approached Elena with a tablet displaying sensor readings. Marcus was brilliant but nervous, constantly adjusting his glasses when he was excited or worried. Right now, he was doing both. "Commander, we are picking up massive energy signatures from the fourth planet," Marcus said, his voice trembling slightly. "The technology readings are unlike anything we've ever seen. Their power output suggests a civilization thousands of years more advanced than ours." Elena studied the data. The energy patterns were indeed impressive, far beyond Earth's current capabilities. But rather than feeling intimidated, she felt excited. Advanced technology meant advanced knowledge, and advanced knowledge meant humanity could learn and grow from this encounter. "Excellent work, Marcus. Begin recording everything for the archives back home. This is history in the making." Elena activated the ship's communication system. "All stations, this is the commander. Prepare for first contact protocols. I want our best linguists ready to decode any communications, and I want cultural specialists standing by to analyze their society. This is what we came here for, people." The crew buzzed with excitement as they prepared. Captain Sarah Thompson, the ship's pilot and Elena's closest friend, joined them on the observation deck. Sarah had been Elena's roommate at the Space Academy. And despite their different career paths, they had remained inseparable. Where Elena was diplomatic and thoughtful, Sarah was bold and direct. They balanced each other perfectly. "So, what do you think they'll be like?" Sarah asked, gazing at the alien planet growing larger on their screens. "Peaceful scientists like us. Maybe they'll want to share technology and explore the universe together." Elena smiled. Sarah's optimism was infectious. "I hope so. Imagine what we could accomplish together. They might have solutions to climate change, disease, even aging. This could be the beginning of a golden age for both our species." Their conversation was interrupted by the ship's communications officer, Lieutenant James Park. His usually calm demeanor had been replaced by visible concern. "Commander, we're receiving an incoming transmission. It's not directed at us specifically, but it's on an open frequency that suggests they know we are here." Elena's heart raced. This was it. First contact. Put it through the universal translator and broadcast it ship-wide. Everyone should hear this historic moment. The translation systems worked for several minutes, decoding the alien language. When the voice finally came through the speakers, it was deep, cold, and utterly without warmth. "Primitive species of the small vessel, you have entered the territory of the Korthak Empire. I am Admiral Zethkar of the Imperial Navy. Your presence here is unauthorized and unwelcome. You will immediately surrender your ship and submit to Imperial authority." The bridge fell silent. Elena felt her stomach drop. This was nothing like the peaceful first contact they had imagined. She quickly composed herself and activated the response system. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the Earth vessel Endeavour. We come in peace, seeking diplomatic contact and mutual understanding. We had no knowledge that this system was claimed by your empire. We would be honored to establish formal communication with your government." The response came quickly, and it was even colder than before. "Peace is irrelevant. Understanding is unnecessary. Your species will submit to imperial rule or be eliminated. This is how the galaxy functions, primitive ones. We have conquered 47 species across 12 sectors. You are nothing special. Elena looked around at her crew. Fear was written on their faces, but she also saw something else: determination. These were Earth's best and brightest people who had dedicated their lives to exploration and discovery. They would not be intimidated. Admiral Zethkar, our species values freedom and independence. We are willing to negotiate trade agreements, cultural exchanges, or mutual defense pacts, but we cannot and will not submit to foreign rule. Perhaps we can find a peaceful solution that benefits both our peoples. A harsh laugh echoed through the ship's speakers. You speak of negotiation as if you have power here. Your single ship against our battle fleet. Your primitive technology against our superior weapons. You understand nothing of how the galaxy works. Since you refuse to submit willingly, you will learn through pain. Elena felt ice in her veins. What do you mean? Your species has established research stations in nearby systems. We detected them weeks ago. Consider this a lesson in the consequences of defying the Korthak Empire. The transmission ended abruptly. Elena immediately ordered full sensor sweeps of surrounding systems, but she already knew what they would find. The Helix research station in the neighboring system had gone silent 3 hours ago. They had assumed it was a communication glitch. Dr. Chen returned to the bridge with his face pale and his hands shaking. Commander, we've confirmed it. The Helix station, it's gone. Completely destroyed. 2,000 researchers, engineers, and their families were stationed there. The bridge fell silent again, but this time the silence was different. It was the silence of shock, of grief, and of something humanity had rarely experienced on a galactic scale: the realization that they were facing an enemy that viewed human life as utterly worthless. Elena felt something fundamental shift inside her. The diplomat, the explorer, the peaceful representative of Earth, those aspects of herself didn't disappear, but they were joined by something harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. These aliens had just murdered 2,000 innocent people as a casual demonstration of power. Sarah, set course for Earth immediately. Maximum speed. Elena, that will take us 4 months even with our best engines. Do it. Elena's voice had changed. The diplomatic warmth was gone, replaced by steel. Marcus, I want you to compile every piece of data we have on Korthak technology, their ship configurations, their tactics. Everything. What are we going to do? Sarah asked. Elena looked out at the stars, thinking of the families who had just died simply for existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. We are going to go home, and we are going to warn Earth that we are not alone in the universe. And that our neighbors are not friendly. During the long journey back to Earth, Elena spent countless hours analyzing the brief encounter with the Korthak Empire. What she learned was both terrifying and informative. The Korthak had conquered nearly 50 species, each conquest following the same pattern: overwhelming technological superiority, a demonstration of power, and then either submission or extermination. But Elena noticed something else in their tactics. The Korthak relied entirely on fear and superior technology. They had never faced a species that fought back with anything other than conventional military resistance. Every species they had encountered had either surrendered immediately or fought traditional battles that played to Korthak's strengths: humanity. Elena realized might be different. Dr. Chen had been working tirelessly to understand Korthak technology. While their ships were indeed more advanced, they weren't impossibly so. The Korthak had focused on building bigger, more powerful vessels designed to intimidate and overwhelm their enemies. But bigger wasn't always better, and power without flexibility could become a weakness. Commander, Marcus said during one of their daily briefings, I've been studying their ship designs from our sensor readings. They are built for maximum intimidation factor: huge, heavily armored, with massive weapons arrays. But that makes them slow and difficult to maneuver. They are designed to fight enemies who will engage them in direct combat. Elena nodded thoughtfully. And what happens if we don't give them the fight they are expecting? Sarah, who had been listening intently, suddenly smiled. It was the first time Elena had seen her smile since learning about the Helix station. You're thinking about asymmetric warfare, aren't you? Hit and run tactics, guerrilla strikes, psychological operations. The Korthak Empire has ruled the galaxy for centuries, Elena said. They've conquered species that probably had better technology than Earth currently has. But I doubt they've ever faced a species that was willing to fight dirty. When the Endeavour finally reached Earth, Elena found a world transformed. The news of the Helix station's destruction had reached Earth 2 months earlier through automated emergency beacons. What Elena saw shocked her: massive industrial complexes being converted to weapons manufacturing, civilian ships being retrofitted with military systems, and millions of volunteers signing up for military service. President Maria Santos met Elena personally at the spaceport. Santos was a small woman in her 60s, but she had the presence of someone who had spent decades making difficult decisions. She had led Earth through the climate crisis of 2157 and the resource wars of 2162. Now she faced the greatest challenge in human history. Commander Vasquez, Santos said, "I need to know everything. How advanced are they? What are their weaknesses? How much time do we have?" Elena provided a complete briefing to Earth's combined military and civilian leadership. The room was filled with generals, admirals, scientists, engineers, and politicians. Some faces showed fear, others determination, but all showed the same grim understanding: humanity was about to fight for its very survival. Based on our analysis, Elena concluded, the Korthak will likely arrive within 6 to 8 months. They'll expect us to either surrender immediately or attempt to fight them in traditional ship-to-ship combat. We need to give them something they've never encountered before. General Lisa Park, Earth's highest-ranking military officer, stood up. Park was a legend in military circles, having revolutionized Earth's defense strategies during the colony wars. She was known for thinking 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Commander Vasquez, Dr. Chen, Captain Thompson, General Park said, "You 3 know these aliens better than anyone else on Earth. I'm assigning you to special project status. I want you to help us develop tactics that will confuse, frustrate, and ultimately defeat an enemy that has never lost a war." Over the following months, Elena watched Earth transform itself from a peaceful, exploration-focused civilization into something the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity didn't try to match Korthak technology; they couldn't, and they didn't have time. Instead, they focused on speed, stealth, and unpredictability. Thousands of small, fast ships were built in hidden asteroid bases. These vessels were designed not to win conventional battles, but to strike quickly and disappear before the enemy could respond. Earth's best minds worked around the clock developing new tactics: ships that could hide in asteroid fields, weapons that could disable rather than destroy, and communication systems that couldn't be intercepted or jammed. But perhaps most importantly, Elena saw something in humanity that she had never fully recognized before. When faced with an existential threat, humans didn't just fight, they adapted, they innovated, and they never gave up. Factory workers volunteered for 18-hour shifts. Scientists shared research freely across all national boundaries. Former enemies worked together with a unity that had never existed in human history. The Korthak Empire had made a fundamental miscalculation. They had assumed that humans were just another species to be conquered. They had no idea that they had just awakened something that had never existed in their galaxy before, a species that viewed freedom as more important than safety, and that would rather die fighting than live in chains. Elena stood once again at an observation deck, this time on Earth's orbital defense station. In the distance, she could see the lights of construction vessels building humanity's first true battle fleet. It wasn't as large or as powerful as the Korthak Armada that was coming, but it was something entirely new. Sarah joined her, now wearing the uniform of Earth's first rapid strike force. "Do you think we can actually win this?" Sarah asked. Elena thought about the 2,000 people who had died at Helix Station. She thought about the 47 species that had been conquered by the Korthak Empire. She thought about what Earth had become in just 6 months when faced with an impossible challenge. "I don't know if we can win," Elena said quietly. "But I know we are going to show the galaxy something it's never seen before. The Korthak think they are fighting another weak species that will surrender or die quickly. They have no idea they just declared war on humanity." In the distance, warning lights began flashing on the defense station's command center. Long-range sensors had detected the first Korthak scout ships entering the outer solar system. The war was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn why starting a fight with humans was the worst mistake the Korthak Empire had ever made. The price of arrogance. Admiral Zethkar stood in the command center of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, and watched the primitive human star system grow larger on his tactical displays. Around him, 12 massive Korthak battleships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that had reduced countless worlds to ash. This would be the 48th species to fall before Korthak might, and Zethkar expected it to be as quick and effortless as all the others. The Admiral was ancient by human standards, having lived for over 3 centuries and conquered more worlds than most Korthak could count. His exoskeleton bore the ritual scars of victory, and his forearms moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who had commanded death across the galaxy. He had never lost a battle, never retreated from a fight, and never encountered a species foolish enough to resist Korthak rule for more than a few days. Report, Zethkar commanded his tactical officer. Admiral, we are detecting significantly more activity than expected, reported Commander Vexhai, his voice carrying the slightest hint of concern. Our scout ships report at least 300 human vessels in the system, far more than initial intelligence suggested. Zethkar made a dismissive gesture with one of his secondary arms. Numbers are meaningless when technology is inferior. Their largest ships are barely 1/10 the size of our smallest cruiser. Begin the demonstration attack on their outer colonies. Once they see their helplessness, they will surrender as all others have done. What happened next would be discussed in Korthak military academies for generations as an example of how overconfidence could transform certain victory into devastating defeat. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Korthak fleet approached the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Admiral Zethkar had ordered a direct course to Earth, intending to destroy the humans' orbital defenses in full view of their home world. It was a tactic that had worked perfectly for centuries. The asteroids exploded, not all of them, and not in the way that natural space debris typically behaves when struck by weapons fire. These explosions were coordinated, simultaneous, and created a debris field that temporarily blinded Korthak sensors. In the confusion that followed, dozens of small human ships appeared from hiding places throughout the asteroid belt. These weren't the large, heavily armed warships that the Korthak expected to face. They were tiny by comparison, fast and agile, each one carrying weapons that the Korthak had never encountered before. Instead of trying to destroy the massive Korthak battleships, the human vessels fired strange devices that attached to the alien hulls like mechanical parasites. Commander Vexhai frantically worked his sensor controls. Admiral, these devices are not explosive. They appear to be scrambling our communication systems and our navigation and our weapons targeting. Zethkar felt the first stirring of genuine confusion in decades. Impossible. No species has ever used such tactics. But the human ships were already gone, vanishing back into the asteroid field before the Korthak could bring their massive weapons to bear. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Zethkar had been struck by an enemy and been unable to strike back. On Earth, General Lisa Park watched the battle unfold from the Global Command Center buried deep beneath the Swiss Alps. Around her, dozens of screens showed real-time data from human ships throughout the solar system. The initial strike had worked exactly as planned. Phase 1 complete, reported Colonel Jake Martinez, Park's chief of operations. All Korthak ships have been tagged with signal scramblers. Their coordination is down by approximately 60%. General Park allowed herself a small smile. The Korthak had expected humanity to fight like every other species they had conquered, large ships fighting large ships in traditional battles where superior technology would decide the outcome. Instead, humanity had chosen to fight like humans. Had always fought when facing a more powerful enemy with intelligence, creativity, and complete disregard for conventional tactics. Initiate Phase 2, Park ordered. Throughout the solar system, human ships began emerging from hiding places that shouldn't have been possible. They had been concealed inside hollowed-out asteroids, disguised as space debris, and hidden in the shadow of planets and moons. The Korthak fleet found themselves surrounded by hundreds of small, fast-moving targets that refused to engage in the kind of direct combat that Korthak weapons were designed for. Captain Sarah Thompson piloted her fighter through the chaos of battle, her squadron of 12 ships moving like a school of fish through the space between two massive Korthak battleships. Sarah had trained for this moment for months, studying every piece of data they had about Korthak technology and tactics. Viper Squadron, remember the plan, Sarah said into a radio. We are not trying to destroy these ships. We are trying to confuse them, frustrate them, and make them make mistakes. Sarah's squadron launched a coordinated attack on the Korthak flagship sensor arrays. Their weapons were specifically designed not to penetrate the thick alien armor, but to create electromagnetic interference that would blind the ship's targeting systems. It was like throwing sand in the eyes of a giant. It didn't kill the giant, but it made the giant much less dangerous. Admiral Zethkar watched in growing fury as his perfect battle formation dissolved into chaos. Human ships were everywhere, striking at his vessels with weapons that didn't seem designed to kill, but to annoy. His massive guns couldn't track targets that moved so quickly and unpredictably. His tactical displays showed dozens of small human vessels, but every time his ships fired at them, the humans were already somewhere else. Status report. Zethkar roared. Admiral, we've lost primary sensors on 4 ships, navigation control on 3 others, and communication with 2 more, Commander Vexhai reported, his voice now openly worried. These humans are not fighting the way any species has ever fought before. Then we will adapt, Zethkar said grimly. Order all ships to target the human home world directly. If we cannot catch their small ships, we will destroy what they are trying to protect. But when the Korthak fleet turned toward Earth, they discovered that the humans had prepared for this possibility as well. Earth's orbital defenses weren't the massive space stations that the Korthak expected. Instead, thousands of small defensive platforms surrounded the planet like a swarm of angry insects. Each platform was too small to pose a significant threat to a Korthak battleship, but together they created a defensive network unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Marcus Chen watched the battle from Earth's main orbital command station, his hands moving quickly across multiple computer interfaces as he coordinated humanity's technological warfare against the Korthak fleet. Marcus had spent months analyzing Korthak systems, looking for weaknesses that could be exploited without having to match their superior firepower. Deploying Cyber Warfare Package, Marcus announced to the command center. If these aliens want to rely on their superior technology, let's see how they handle some human computer viruses. The Korthak had never encountered cyber warfare. In their centuries of conquest, they had faced species with advanced technology, but none had ever thought to attack the technology itself rather than the ships that carried it. Marcus had designed computer programs specifically to infiltrate and disrupt Korthak systems, and now those programs spread through the alien fleet like a digital plague. Suddenly, Korthak ships began behaving erratically. Weapons fired at random targets. Navigation systems sent ships spinning in circles. Communications channels filled with feedback loops that made coordination impossible. The most advanced military fleet in the galaxy was being defeated by lines of computer code written by a nervous scientist who had never fired a weapon in his life. Admiral Zethkar realized that his fleet was not just losing this battle, they were being humiliated. In 3 centuries of warfare, no enemy had ever made Korthak forces look foolish. These humans were treating the galaxy's most feared military as if they were children playing with toys they didn't understand. Retreat to minimum safe distance, Zethkar ordered through gritted teeth. We need to regroup and develop new tactics. As the Korthak fleet pulled back from Earth, Admiral Zethkar sent an emergency communication to the Korthak High Command. For the first time in the Empire's history, one of their fleets had been forced to retreat from battle with a primitive species. But humanity wasn't finished. General Park had anticipated that the Korthak would retreat and regroup, so she had prepared Phase 3 of her strategy. While the alien fleet nursed their wounds and tried to understand what had gone wrong, human ships were already moving to positions throughout Korthak space. Lieutenant Jake Rodriguez led a daring mission to the Sigma Centauri system, where the Korthak maintained a prison colony holding captured members of various conquered species. Jake's team consisted of 50 volunteers who knew they were flying into what amounted to a suicide mission. Their job was not just to rescue the prisoners, but to send a message to every species in the galaxy: humanity would not abandon Anyone who needed help, the prison colony was lightly defended because the Korthak believed no species would be foolish enough to attack it. Jake's small fleet approached the planet using the same stealth techniques that had worked so well in the solar system. They hid their ships among natural space debris and waited for the perfect moment to strike. "Ghost Team, this is Jake," he whispered into his radio. "Remember, we are not trying to win a battle. We are trying to save lives and get out before they can respond. Speed and surprise are everything." The rescue mission began at dawn on the prison planet. Human ships descended through the atmosphere like falling stars, their landing zones carefully chosen to avoid Korthak defensive positions. Jake's team used weapons and tactics that the galaxy had never seen before: non-lethal stunning devices, portable shield generators, and extraction techniques perfected by Earth's special forces. The prisoners they found were members of 7 different species, all of whom had been told that resistance to the Korthak Empire was hopeless. When human soldiers began cutting through their cell doors, many of the prisoners thought they were hallucinating. Zara of the Villani, an insectoid species that had been conquered 15 years earlier, stared at Jake in disbelief. Her people were natural engineers and had been enslaved to build Korthak weapons. She had given up hope of ever seeing freedom again. "Who are you?" Zara asked in the Galactic common language. "We are humans," Jake said, helping her to her feet. "And we are here to get you out of this place." "But that's impossible," Zara said. "No one fights the Korthak Empire. No one wins against them." Jake smiled as he heard explosions in the distance. The sound of his team destroying the prison's communication equipment to prevent the Korthak from calling for reinforcements. "Nobody told us that," Jake said. "Maybe that's why we're winning." The rescue mission extracted over 3,000 prisoners from 12 different species. But more importantly, it accomplished something that hadn't happened in the galaxy for centuries. It gave hope to the oppressed species throughout Korthak space. Word spread quickly that a new species had appeared, one that was not only fighting the Korthak Empire but actually winning battles against them. Within weeks, resistance movements began forming on dozens of worlds. Species that had accepted Korthak rule for generations suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. The Villani used their engineering skills to sabotage Korthak weapons factories. The Pyrrhidi, a warrior species that had been defeated through overwhelming numbers, began attacking Korthak supply lines. The Nexri, master strategists who had been forced to plan Korthak conquests, turned their skills against their former masters. Admiral Zethkar found himself fighting not just humanity, but a galactic rebellion that grew stronger every day. Every time Korthak forces were sent to suppress one uprising, 2 more would begin somewhere else. The empire that had maintained order through fear and superior technology suddenly found itself facing enemies who were no longer afraid and were learning to use Korthak technology against them. Back on Earth, Commander Elena Vasquez had been promoted to admiral and placed in charge of coordinating humanity's expanding war effort. She stood in the same observation deck where she had first dreamed of peaceful contact with alien species, but now she was planning military operations across multiple star systems. "Status report," Elena said to her staff. General Park approached with a tablet full of data. "Elena, the situation is evolving faster than we had hoped. We now have active allies among 12 different species, and resistance movements are active in over 30 Korthak-controlled systems. The Empire is losing control of their outer territories." Elena nodded, but she didn't feel victorious. Every report brought news of battles won and lives saved, but also of the terrible cost of war. Thousands of humans had died in the fighting, and countless aliens had lost their lives in the struggle for freedom. "What's the status of our diplomatic overtures to the Korthak High Command?" Elena asked. Dr. Marcus Chen, now serving as humanity's chief xeno-diplomat, looked up from his computer. "They've been refusing all communication for weeks. But our intelligence suggests there's growing division within their government. Some Korthak leaders are beginning to question whether this war can be won. The final battle of the war came not through military action, but through something the Korthak had never encountered before: economic warfare. Humanity and their new allies began targeting the trade routes and resource extraction facilities. That kept the Korthak Empire functioning. Without the tribute and forced labor from conquered species, the Empire's economy began to collapse. Ambassador Korthvel, a moderate member of the Korthak High Command, finally contacted Earth directly. He was younger than Admiral Zethkar and represented a faction of Korthak society that was beginning to question centuries of military expansion. Admiral Vasquez, Korthvel said through the communication link, his translated voice carrying tones of exhaustion and defeat, I request formal negotiations to end this conflict. Elena looked at the alien face on her screen. This was the moment she had trained for as a diplomat, but never under these circumstances. Ambassador Korthvel, humanity is willing to discuss terms, but our conditions are non-negotiable. All conquered species must be granted immediate independence. All forced labor camps must be closed. All prisoners must be released. And the Korthak Empire must pay reparations for the damage they have caused across the galaxy. Korthvel was quiet for a long moment. Admiral, what you ask would mean the end of the Empire as it has existed for millennia. Elena thought about the 2,000 people who had died at Helix Station, about Jake Rodriguez and his volunteers, who had risked everything to save strangers, about Sarah Thompson and all the pilots who had flown impossible missions against overwhelming odds. Ambassador, your empire made a choice when it decided to start a war with humanity. Now you have to live with the consequences of that choice. The Treaty of Terror was signed 3 months later. The Korthak Empire agreed to all of humanity's terms, releasing dozens of species from centuries of slavery and occupation. Admiral Zethkar was forced to retire in disgrace, his perfect record of conquest ended by a species he had dismissed as primitive and weak, but perhaps the most significant change was not political but psychological. The galaxy had learned that the Korthak Empire could be defeated, that freedom was possible, and that sometimes the smallest species could stand up to the mightiest empire and win. Elena Vasquez stood once again at her observation deck, but now she watched ships from dozens of different species working together to build a new galactic alliance based on cooperation rather than conquest. Humanity had gone from being unknown explorers to being the protectors of galactic freedom in less than 2 years. Sarah Thompson joined her, now wearing the uniform of the new galactic defense force that humanity had helped to establish. So, was it worth it? Sarah asked. Elena thought about the cost of the war, the lives lost, the peaceful exploration missions that would never happen. But she also thought about the millions of beings who were now free, the species that had rediscovered hope, and the new galaxy where cooperation was replacing conquest. The Korthak Empire ruled through fear for over 1,000 years, Elena said quietly. They conquered species, enslaved populations, and crushed anyone who opposed them. They thought they were the strongest force in the galaxy. Elena paused, watching a group of young humans and aliens working together on a joint research project. They were wrong. The strongest force in the galaxy isn't superior technology or military might. It's the willingness of free people to fight for each other, even when the odds seem impossible. In the end, the galaxy's most feared species had learned a lesson that would echo through history: never start a fight with someone who has more to lose than you do, and never underestimate a species that values freedom more than safety. The Korthak Empire had picked a fight with humanity, and they had paid the ultimate price: not just military defeat, but the complete transformation of the galaxy they had once ruled through fear. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And it all started because one species refused to surrender when surrender seemed like the only logical choice.